So this is every movie I watched in July. First, I watched Jackie, which examines the life of Jacqueline Kennedy immediately following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. I was a fan of director Pablo Larraín's recent movie Spencer, and have been wanting to check this one out for a while. It focuses on a story we all know on a macro level, but pushes in to see how these events affect Jackie on a micro level. Like, you know history, but do you know her story? I've realized you can plug and play any woman from history who's gone through a struggle into Larraín's undersaturated, symmetrical world. And with a great lead performance, it makes for a memorable film. Then I watched Poser. This focuses on a young adult who wants to fit in with the Columbus, Ohio independent music and art scene. Except for she hasn't really done anything artistic yet, so she then tries to cheat the process. At certain times, it seemed to use kind of the cliche dreamer trope, but the super unique atmosphere and use of real-life artists showed how much the directors know and care about this world. And just when I thought this would wrap up a little too neatly, it takes a dark, somewhat unexpected turn at the end. Throughout the movie, you get a unique glimpse into a music scene that I didn't even know existed. There's a random camp appearance, and a great song I've been nonstop listening to since that's actually also a major plot point. Next, I saw David Lynch's Lost Highway at probably my favorite theater. I now have just one more of Lynch's feature films to go. Like a lot of his work, this is less film as a narrative story and more of an exploration of film as a feeling, which he is one of the masters at making. Which is kind of odd because my two favorite Lynch films just happen to be his two most normal narrative ones. But this movie is full of shifting identities, intriguing mystery, and memorable scenes, including the scary little fellow saying,
"We've met before, haven't we?"
It's very abstract and could be great on even more levels if it weaved it all together narratively. Then I watched Through a Glass Darkly. This is kind of based on this verse in 1 Corinthians 13, which could use an entire video analysis itself, but essentially it's saying that this side of heaven, some mysteries of God remain unclear to us. And in this film, one of the major characters, Karen, specifically deals with an unclear, distorted view of God as a result of her incurable illness. That illness, among other things, is causing her spouse to become more distant, tearing apart their marriage. And her father, who they are visiting, is detached, and throughout his life has focused more on his writing career over his children, causing that relationship to be distorted and strained as well. So yeah, more lighthearted fun from Ingmar. Next, I watched High and Low. This may be the best crime thriller ever made. It's filled with class commentary and moral dilemmas while also being a tense and intriguing mystery. It has a deceptively simple plot. A businessman's son is kidnapped and he is blackmailed into sending a ransom. But just 15 minutes or so in, there's a strong first twist and I was hooked. And from there, each of the 3 acts kind of focuses in on a specific character and their role in the plot. Akira Kurosawa has made one of the best dramas I've ever seen, one of the best Shakespeare adaptations, one of the best samurai epics, and one of the best crime thrillers. That's crazy range. Then I saw Where the Crawdads Sing. I'm completely unfamiliar with the novel this is based on and just couldn't get invested in the stakes or the characters. There's a murder trial weaved in to try to create a somewhat non-linear timeline, but I completely forgot about the trial for most of the film. The rest follows our protagonist, the Marsh girl, growing up and falling in love. The lead performance by Daisy Edgar Jones was great, I just couldn't get into this. It was also past my bedtime on a family vacation when I saw this, so that didn't help. Next, I watched Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which is about a working-class English woman who dreams of going to Paris and buying a Dior dress. Through strings of good fortune, Mrs. Harris, as the title alludes, goes to Paris. We see her kindness and near naivety juxtaposed with the bourgeoisie people's stuck-upness and pride, while all attending that same Dior event. It's a fun, uplifting film that could be recommended to just about anyone, in which Mrs. Harris's kindness triumphs in the end. Then I saw Nope, the new Jordan Peele horror movie. This was one of my most anticipated films in quite a while. I rewatched his first 2 movies leading up to this. My expectations were sky high, and I don't know, it's not at all what I was expecting. But without giving too much away, this is a creative monster movie with unique commentaries on the film industry and humans versus nature. It's definitely grown on me since I left the theater and I need to revisit it. Next, I watched Apples. First off, this may be one of the most well-designed posters I've ever seen. The film takes place during a pandemic in which a memory loss virus is spreading, and a medical company assists the victims by providing them with a fresh start. They make them complete a series of life tasks to try to make the most of their new lives and get readjusted to the world. Our main character goes through the process of completing these tasks while recalling faint memories and recollections of his old life. One of them being his love for apples. He seemingly more than the others longs to return to his old life, even if it wasn't perfect and there was hurt. I so enjoy these little indies that just make you reflect on life for a bit, you know? Then I watched Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. I have no idea how this is an actual movie, but it's based on a 3-minute viral YouTube video from 2010. And is about a guy who moves into an Airbnb where Marcel the Shell lives with her grandmother, and the guy documents Marcel's life. The Shells are separated from the rest of their family and go on a journey to reunite with them. As someone who made little stop-motion movies and characters out of garbage and random objects as a kid, this was even more fun. A stop-motion shell with one googly eye teaches us about family, loss, and dealing with fame. And it's great. Then I watched 2 films by Sam Peckinpaw, Straw Dogs and Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I want to try to make a series of videos exploring the work of auteurs, and Peckinpaw would definitely be one of them. All of his films I've seen deal with violence and specifically the meaninglessness of that violence in powerful ways that I've never seen in any other film. Now getting into these movies, Straw Dogs, also one of the best posters I've ever seen. But in this, an American academic guy moves to rural England with his wife and things go downhill from there. There's some very disturbing scenes, and it's probably not a movie I want to see again, but the third act is one of the most intensely well done things I've ever seen. Peckinpah really builds to a crazy conclusion. I describe this as Get Out meets Home Alone meets Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just add hints of toxic, disturbing, violent, and British, and you've got this movie. Then Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. These two were old outlaw friends, but now Pat is a sheriff and Billy is wanted by the law, so Pat has to hunt him down. The production of this movie had a number of conflicts between Peckinpah and the studio, and it definitely shows in the final product. It just seems unfinished, and there's been 3 different cuts of this film released. But you do get a Bob Dylan soundtrack featuring his hit Knockin' on Heaven's Door, as well as a strange performance from Bob himself. To conclude the month, I saw Mission Impossible. Post Top Gun, my eyes have been opened and I've been so much more interested in seeing all things Tom. I don't think I've actually ever seen this before, but I recalled a lot of the more memorable scenes. It's a great spy thriller, although hard to follow what's actually going on. But the gadgets are cool and the action is big, so that was every movie I watched in July. Here's a favorite and a least favorite.